Hello everyone. I'm experimenting this summer term on making some short videos to share with students to help give you some additional direction on how to work through the course content. Considering that you have a paper due this Thursday, I thought now would be a good time to record some of my thoughts on how to write about literature. If you review the essay assignment, you'll notice that I'm really asking you to focus on two things. One is to provide a detailed character analysis. The goal here is to describe a character with some precision and also to think through the implications of that character. And that's really the analysis aspect of it. So when you have a character in a story, it's our job really as literary critics to try to understand what that character means or the significance of that character in the larger context of the narrative. I've tried to provide you a way to do that by asking you to consider, in particular, the way that the character is described, the things that the character says, and the things that the character does in the story. Depending on what story you choose, you may only be able to talk about two of those things. So it's not a requirement of the essay that you address all three of those. It's up to you how many of those you address or in what combination you address those particular foci. But I do think that for you to be successful in this assignment, you need to address some combination of those concerns. So after you've selected a character, you need to look carefully at that character and consider how the author describes the character, what the character says, and what the character does, and then to draw conclusions based on those details. That would provide you with the sort of framework that you need to engage in the character analysis component of this essay assignment. The other thing that I'm asking you to do is to connect that character analysis to the larger meaning of the story. This really requires you to do some interpretive work. Okay, there is no correct meaning of any particular text. We determine the meanings of the text based on the sorts of evidence that we can extract from the literary work itself. So read the story carefully, consider in particular your character, how that character functions within the story, and then try to use that to determine as best you can what you think the story is really all about. Okay, so that really provides you with what you need to produce a thesis in this essay. So your essay should most certainly be thesis oriented, meaning you have a particular point of view, you have a certain kind of conclusion that you've drawn about the story, and you want to share that conclusion with me or whoever your reader may be. So my advice in terms of how to actually construct the essay would be to write an introduction that provides a very basic, general, and relatively short overview of the story. This may provide a little bit of summary, but really it could be some sentences that address the major themes of the story and leading into some more specific statements about what you believe the story is really about. The character analysis should also be part of that. So in your introduction, you should introduce the character that you are going to be discussing. And you should tie that character to the conclusion you've drawn about the story as a whole. Okay, so that connection between those two elements should be in a thesis sentence that you've written. Once you've done that, you need to go through a series of paragraphs. It could be 2 paragraphs, it could be 3, it could be 4. It really depends on how long your paragraphs are, that provide detailed analyses of the character. Okay, now those paragraphs should be focused on the thesis as well. In other words, you're analyzing aspects of the character in order to support or demonstrate the validity of the thesis that you've given in your introduction. Those paragraphs should make use of specific passages from the literature, meaning that you should provide either detailed summaries or even better yet, quotations from the story that you're writing about within those body paragraphs. When you give those quotations or detailed summaries, then you need to provide analysis of that. And this is really where the bulk of the work comes from. So when you've provided a quotation, you need to then go and write several sentences that explain in detail the significance of those particular words you've quoted. So if it's something that a character says, then you need to put some effort into your paragraph of explaining to your reader the significance of that statement, what those words that the character has uttered tell us about that character within the context of the story. Similarly, if it's a description of the character, then you need to do that same kind of work of unpacking and explaining and analyzing how that particular description creates a particular meaning within the story, how it directs readers to understand that character and the story itself in a particular way. The same would be true with the sorts of things that a character does. The bulk of your writing in those body paragraphs should be analysis, and the analysis should be connected to specific references from the text. Okay? So even though I'm talking about specific summaries, I'm not asking for a plot summary. Your essay should not spend very much time explaining what happens in the story. It should spend almost all of its time focused on how specific passages from the text, whether they be descriptions or moments of dialogue or action, how those passages generate a meaning, how those passages lead you to your interpretation. Those should be well-developed paragraphs. I would think that they would be somewhere in the range of 6 sentences, 7 sentences, up to 10 sentences. If it's only 3 sentences or so, I think that you probably haven't spent enough time trying to develop your thoughts. Okay, so those paragraphs then are supportive of your general view that you've expressed in your thesis, and they develop specific interpretations or analyses of aspects of the text itself. Once you've done that, then in the conclusion, I think you should spend some time reflecting on the general meaning of the story. So having understood these particular aspects of the text, what sorts of overarching conclusions can be drawn about this particular story, what the author seems to be trying to accomplish in terms of creating an artwork that has some relevance within the real world. So take a moment in your conclusion and try to convey to your reader the importance of what it is that you just discussed. So the goal here is not only just to demonstrate that you can analyze a work of literature, but also to show that you understand how literature produces meaning within the real world. Okay? So those are the sorts of goals that you should be focused on for this assignment. I've uploaded 2 sample essays to Blackboard. You can find them in the content area of our course Blackboard site that were written by AUD students in one of my Introduction to Literature courses. Both of the essays are about the novel Frankenstein, which was our Reading Across Campus text last year. And I gave both of those essays high A's, so 95% or higher. They are not perfect. There are many things about those essays that could be improved, but I think they are very good essays. They're clear. They have a sense of organization. It's evident to me that the students thought about that text intelligently, that they considered specific passages from the text, and that they had a way of understanding the text that was revealing a kind of critical reading in an interpretive framework that they were applying. They were not responding to the same assignment, so I was not asking them to look for dialogue and action and description. So you can't use these as an exact model of what I'm asking you to do. But they are examples of what I consider to be very good literary analyses at this level of learning. So you can review those. They're much longer than I'm asking for you also. Okay, these are like 7 or 8 page papers. Yours should be 3 pages or maybe a little more. But you can review those just as models of good writing about literature at the 100 level in university. Okay? I've also posted 2 reading responses on Blackboard. One is due before the start of class tomorrow, so please make sure that you do that. The other will be due before the start of class on Thursday. I understand that the paper's due on that day. Do the best you can. It's okay with me if your response is 100 words or 150 words. It doesn't have to be so detailed. Just try to identify what I'm asking you to identify briefly. Think a little bit about the story so that when you come to class on Thursday, you can have a productive class session. If you have any questions about the assignment or any other aspect of the course, please let me know. Otherwise, I wish you all the best writing your essays. I very much look forward to seeing them on Thursday, and I'll see you all tomorrow.